Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dynamic Torah podcast. This was episode 10, and on this episode, we unpacked a few ideas from last week's episode. One idea was about the word religion, where it comes from, how it came to be, why it is antithetical to Judaism if you really study and understand what the word is. The other idea that we unpacked, which was another follow-up from last week's episode, was about the Mitzvot and responsibility, what the connection is between them, what the purpose of Mitzvot are. Really unpacking that whole idea, and that the more responsibility one has, ultimately, the more meaning an individual has in their life. The second half of the podcast discusses an introduction to Sefer Devarim, how it's broken down, what the purpose of it is, and then delving into Parashat Devarim for some ideas on the parasha. If you like the content, thank you again for watching. We really hope that you can like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with anyone who you think would appreciate the Torah that we're sharing, and enjoy this week's episode. Episode 10, we have a minyan.
Dieci.
Dieci, 10. Minyan. We made it. Episode 10. I think it's worth being proud of. It's 10 straight weeks of making a podcast, making episodes, recording, and to many, many, many more, because there's a whole lot more Torah to discuss and unpack. So we were talking before on Sunday, and we were discussing some of the things that you wanted to unpack a little bit more based on last week's episode and to follow up. So take it away.
When I listened to the podcasts back during the week, I recall a lot of information. Because a lot of the stuff that we unpack here, although we might be speaking about a particular subject, it's somewhere in my head lurking, a lot of the information. So I want to revisit certain things because they're very important to understand. They're fundamental in order to expand more, to give even more of a broader understanding of certain things that we discuss in the podcast. So that's why sometimes we're going to revisit certain elements or themes or a detail, that the detail is like a very sharp detail to even see the bigger picture. So we're going to be doing that every so often when necessary. So I did mention to you that I wanted to discuss the word religion. And last week we said that in Hebrew there is no equivalent word for religion. The word dat means law. The word dati, very often you hear, oh, ata dati, are you dati? Loosely again used as, are you religious? It doesn't go. The word, a person who is dati, means law abiding. So the Torah has no words of this sort, because when you say religious, it sounds you either are or you're not. That is not the Torah. The Torah is a collective, inclusive, universal, really, set of responsibilities for a Jewish person to take upon him and herself. Was there anyone who ever fulfilled the entire Torah? No, it's impossible. Clearly, different classes. You have Kohen, Levi, this, that. We spoke about that also before. People who are obligated, people who are exempt. All right, so let's say we're all obligated to do X. Does it mean that everybody does it? No, but does it mean that the people who don't do X don't do Y and Z and ABC? Of course they do. Of course they do. I sometimes have these nice conversations with both, American Jewish people as well as a lot of Israelis, and they say, "Oh, I'm not religious. I'm not dati," and I tell them, "Yes, you are." They say, "What do you? No, I'm not. I don't keep kasher 100% or I don't keep Shabbat." And then I tell them, that's only two things you're talking about out of hundreds of things that you can be doing. So what, you think the definition of a person who follows the Torah is only those two things? Do you eat Hametz and Pesach? No. Do you believe in claim that there's one God? Yes. Do you practice anything that has to do with idolatry and avodah zarah? Of course not. Do you commit sexual abominations that are unacceptable in society in general? No. Do you light Hanukkah candles? Yes. Do you sometimes eat in a sukkah and Sukkot? Yes, we do that. It's nice. Do you fast on Yom Kippur? Yes. Do you hear the shofar? Yes. Do you pray sometimes? Yes. Do you put tefillin? Sometimes. Do you put a talit when you go to bed? Yes. I'll go right off the bat, you fulfilled over 100 mitzvot. You want to tell me that you're not law abiding? The perspective changes. This is something that we say very often in the end of classes when people learn, let's say halakha or Mishnah or Divrei Torah, before people say Kaddish. You know, it's a very, very famous Mishnah. I believe it's in end of Masekhet Makkot that says, Rabbi Hanina ben Akasha Omer. Rabbi Hanina, the son of Akasha, used to say, right? Ratzah Kadosh Baruch Hu lezakot et Israel. God wanted to lezakot et Israel. Now the word lezakot is usually sometimes translated, it's in order to deem the people a reward. Like zechut, a reward, right? But if we look at the root of the word is zach. What is zach? Pure. Right? Shemen zayit zach. Pure oil. Right? What does that mean? He wanted to purify us. He wanted us to be better with our behavior. He wanted to give us more meaning in our lives, which, again, it's a level, in a sense, it's a level of purity. Not to stain ourselves, not to stain our soul, not to stain our minds, not to stain our actions, our articulation, our relations with human, not to stain those things in a sense. Right? Lezakot et Israel. Lefichach, therefore, what did he do? So how is it that if God wanted to purify the Jewish people, through what means? Look at the statement. Hirba lehem Torah Mitzvot. He gave them the Torah and the Mitzvot, but not only gave them, hirba, he made it abundant. The Torah contains an abundant amount of Mitzvot. Shneimar, as it says in the Pasuk, Adonai hafetz leman tzidko. God desires in order for others to be righteous, just like him. Yagdil Torah v'yadir. He grandized the Torah and he made it even beautiful. The point is the ways of the Torah are beautiful, they're honorable, and it just tells you a very profound idea. It's not, in Judaism, it's not all or nothing. You were born a Jew, even if you became a Muslim or Christian or Hindu, you're still a Jew. You're mistaken, or maybe sometimes you are rebellious and you're doing it on purpose. Okay, yeah. But you're still a Jew at the end of the day. In other faiths, you change the faith, you're done, you're out. If a Muslim becomes a Christian, according to Islamic law, he's a Christian. He's not Muslim anymore. The same thing with Christianity. You defected from the Christian faith, you are now of that faith. You don't belong anymore here. It's over. But we're, as Jewish people, we view ourselves as citizens of the Jewish faith. Yes, if a person did something really horrific and he got karet and he's cut off from the Jewish people, he's cut off from the Jewish people from the point of view as you're not part of our nation anymore, but you're still a Jew. You defected, but you're still a Jew. And if you do want to come back, you can have that coming back to show up between you and God. As us trusting you again, that is very questionable. And usually we said, you can be among us, but we don't trust you anymore. I'm sorry, because you defected from who we are. You wanted to give up your citizenship of your nationhood. So when I speak to people and demonstrate to them that you are observant, you just don't realize it. Do you think the most observant Jew is 100% observant? No. You mean to tell me that certain people, sometimes we grandize them and we market them as saints, they never make mistakes? Of course they do. Is there recourse to do teshuvah? Absolutely. But that's for everybody. The same thing, if a person was not educated with Judaism, if a person was never really told or explained halakha, Jewish law, that person is not liable. Because the Torah is a system of education. You can't figure it out on your own. You can't, more than this, you can't make up a faith called Judaism to say I have a new faith. No. It's a covenant between us, the nation of Israel, and God. So that's why it's very important. And if we look at the Torah, we look in the language of the Torah, what does the Torah always say? Lishmor, to observe the mitzvot. Especially in the book of Devarim that we're about to start this Shabbat, it iterates this over and over and over and over again. Lishmor, to keep, to observe. That's what it means. That's what it means.
All right, so then, okay.
So going back to what we said about religion, so I want to explain the origin of this word. And what I'm saying, of course, is from Chacham Faur alav Shalom, who taught this to me. The word religion comes from the Latin. Okay? If we break the word down, the prefix is re, re. Re basically means to redo something. Right? And the other part of the word, legion, comes from the word legar. Lejar, Latin, which means to bind, to tie, to bind. Okay? Mm-hmm. Where does this come from? All right? And who came up with the word religion, which originally in Latin was relegar, to rebond, to retie. Right? The church fathers, they are the ones who introduced this coinage of a word. Okay, where does it come from? According to Christian doctrine, they believe that since God allowed his second temple to be destroyed, the Jewish people to be dispersed, sold as slaves to Rome, persecuted, tortured, disseminated, their land taken away, their statehood taken away. They're done. Squashed. It's evidence that God has broke the bond, the covenant, between him and his people. Up until one point in time it existed, the covenant, yes. Hence, the Christian faith acknowledges Jewish scripture. They call it the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. Why is it old? Because God abandoned his people. He says, I have nothing to do with you anymore. So therefore, the bond that he had with us is gone. And they understood, they accepted that the way you reach salvation, the Jewish people reach salvation, according to them, was through, of course, the bond they had with God, the covenant. If you fulfill the covenant, you have salvation. You don't fulfill the covenant, oy vavoy, you're damned. And they'll definitely use verses in Scripture to demonstrate this. Yes, it is. However, now that we have no way of salvation, right? The Father abandoned the covenant, no more covenant. How are we going to reach salvation? Not only for Jews are whatever with them, but humanity. Right? We need to retie the bond between the Father and humanity. So, according to Christian doctrine, God sent his Son, Jesus, in the flesh. In the flesh. In God's, the Father's will in the flesh is Jesus. Okay? To retie the bond. And through him, Jesus, humanity reaches salvation. Therefore, you need now a new testament, a new path of how to reach this type of salvation. Therefore, we have religion. It's retying the bond between humanity and God. And Jesus is the medium between us and the Father. That is what the church fathers coined this term to mean. Now, I'm asked sometimes, people, are you religion? Are you religious? I say, no, I'm not religious. They say, what do you mean I'm religious? You know, you keep this. I go, I'm observant. What's the difference? I go, huge difference. Huge difference. To know, because if we're going to say Judaism is a religion, then we just equate it with every other religion. It's not. It's not so much about the practices that we do, because others have practices too. They do. There's things they do, there's things they don't do. There's things they believe, there's things that they don't believe. Okay, and good for them, based on their own tradition, fine. Right? But no one, not one of them, ever claimed to have a national covenant with God, which is fascinating. All other faiths based themselves according to what one person said. Not one of them ever said that we have a covenant with God. The God of our people spoke to our ancestors. No, none of them claim this, which is fascinating. Okay? So our faith, again, is based upon an agreement that we have with God. It's a set of responsibilities called mitzvot. They're legal. Jewish law halacha expands on how to perform these mitzvot, as well as throughout the course of generations, things changed, we adapted, the law adapted, etc. And here we are today. Mm-hmm. That's, I think, was a point that I wanted to cover.
Yeah.
With that, yeah.
There's a lot to unpack there. And I'll tie it to another point they want to discuss as well, which was about mitzvot and responsibility. Because the word religion makes things seem very esoteric and very, like you said, black and white. Are you religious or not? When you put the word in observant, it's on a spectrum. You can be non-observant. You can be fully, again, non and fully, again, those are also extremes that I don't necessarily apply, but it removes an element of like mystical, out there, religion, spirituality, and makes it very concrete and practical and legal, which is what the Torah and Misvot ultimately do. Not just that, but it also, when you say observance, there's a connotation of responsibility that comes with it, right? So when it comes to mitzvot and that responsibility, well, one would say, why are there so many mitzvot? What's the purpose of having all this responsibility on us, right?
Very simple. To give everybody the opportunity to connect with the law, with the covenant with God.
So meaning?
Of course, meaning. But meaning is subjective to each person. And through the course of one's life, one should do their best to discover what is the meaning and purpose of why I'm doing these mitzvot, or mitzvah. I love this mitzvah, but what is the meaning behind it? What is it making me become? Everything that God has ever done is with purpose. God knows the purpose of all and everything. We don't. You know, we're living in the world of darkness. I mean, every so often there's a lightning.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The Torah. The point of the Torah is that when you're living the Torah in the proper way, again, I say the proper way, and it's beautiful, and it's pleasant, and it's harmonious, and it's something that when people see it, they say, this is wonderful. They don't get a bad taste of it. Then you're living in the world of God, which is the world of light. What does that mean? More clarity, more intelligence, more appreciation. And the only way to achieve this really is having humility. Without humility, there is no place for the Torah and God. Chachamim say, wherever there is arrogance, the presence of God is not found. Wherever there is humility, you will find the presence of God.
Mm.
It's extremely deep. It's both on an individual level as well as on a societal level. I'll give you an example. You see a very needy person. You don't know who this person. A person that you say, oh, they look bad.
Mm-hmm.
They don't look good. I mean, they're in bad shape. Okay. A person who cares only about themselves, who is arrogant and haughty, will never help them. Therefore, you will not see God in action. Which means what? His ways. Which are what? Compassion, mercy. Right? But you see the same type of person, and a person passes by who happens to be more humble, more empathetic, understanding, doesn't have to be rich. Stops and say, how are you doing? What's wrong? Oh, I need a little money for some lunch. Okay, here's $5. That is where you see God. That's just one example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. God teaches us how to be this way. The Torah teaches us how to be this way. Nowhere in the entire Tanakh does it even imply or even slightly suggest that be arrogant, even a little bit. Nowhere. You can be proud of your accomplishments. But even that, God says, don't forget who gave you the ability, the strength, and the opportunity to do this. Don't say, don't say, it's my arm and my strength who did all this. Moshe says, no. Remember God, who's the one who gave you all those abilities and opportunities to do. This way you'll recall and you'll still stay humble. It doesn't mean to be a rag, no. But being grateful, humility. And again, that is how we become God's vessel, okay, to bring His will into life, into reality, and not only theory. The Torah is a theory. The mitzvot are the practice. The mitzvot are tangible.
So it's to manifest God's will on this earth.
Yeah, but it's through us.
Through us, right.
And those who are willing to take upon themselves the covenant. And even non-Jews who are willing to take upon themselves a lot of the key fundamental aspects of how to be a good person, a good human being. Absolutely. They don't have to be Jewish. They don't have to convert. No? We never looked for recruits, by the way. We never recruited people.
No, we haven't recruited people, but I think now in our day and age relative to others, there's been not a recruitment of people, but the Kiruv movement.
Reawakening, because many people are looking for more meaning in their life. They're realizing that, okay, all right, so I live in the land of Israel, so I'm Israeli. Okay, what does that mean? You're Israeli. And most of us would tell you, I'm Israeli, I'm here, I'm Israeli, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But most of what it is very superficial. What is it? What's the culture of Israeli per se?
Same in America. In
It's
America,
it's becoming that way.
It's become. I mean,
Yeah.
you have all these summer programs, for example, that are taking public school kids to Israel. You have Birthright, they're taking people to Israel. You have different learning programs on a weekly basis, whether it's in New York or Miami, where they're trying to bring people in and give them fundamentals and basics of Judaism.
But not Israeli, Judaism, Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's the thing. Unfortunately, it's the modern state that we're living in that doesn't emphasize about the depths of one's identity. And Judaism is very deep. Very. Okay? And it's a struggle. The struggle.
Yeah.
To keep that, not only, you can't keep your identity neutral, because we move backwards. Humans, if we don't move forward, by default we're moving backward. If the brain and the mind is not stimulated, it gets dumber. It's the same thing with our muscles. It's the same thing with our education. This is something fascinating. Hebrew is a very efficient, stingy language. In general, we know that Hebrew words are made from core words. This is basically three-letter words, we'll call them the parent words. Mm-hmm. And depending on what different prefixes and suffixes and combination of different vowels on the word, it becomes a language. It becomes different tenses, female, male, plural, verbs, all that. But in essence, if you would take all the root words in the entire Tanakh that has millions of words, there's about 6,000. So Hebrew is a very, very efficient but also stingy language. This is something fascinating. If you take the Shakespearean English that Shakespeare used in his writings, there's about 23,000. That's 1500s. Hebrew root words is only 6. Today there's over a million and something words in English. That's because English became the common language of people. The more language that it's used, the more it starts to expand. One of the reasons why Hebrew, unfortunately, is so tight-knitted that it is because it was not the common language of the people for at least 1700 years. We were living, even in the land of Israel, half of us, if not more, became dispersed. We were living under empires. Then we were in Babylonia. The Assyrian language became the common language. By the way, when we were living in Israel, by the way, the business language was Assyrian. It wasn't even Hebrew. We called it the lingua franca, the language of commerce. Mm. Then we lived under the Persians, so the Persian language became. Then we lived under the Greeks. That was Greek language. Then under the Romans, that was Latin. Hebrew was only used in the synagogue and in the temple, in the Bet HaMikdash. Commonly, no. As well as Aramaic was used throughout the course of centuries, from the destruction of the first temple all the way until the Talmudic times even. Okay? Then we have Arabic. Okay? Then we have the Romantic languages of Europe. Where's Hebrew? It's not being developed. Only in the late 1800s, suddenly, we start to talk a little better. This is fascinating. So if we look at the root word, what is the root word in Hebrew to learn?
Lamed mem daled. Lamad.
Lamad.
Sure.
What is the root word in Hebrew to teach?
Limed. Lamed mem daled.
Same root.
Different forms.
Different
Pa'al,
forms.
kal, and piel. Yeah.
But look at the depth of that. That is depth. Telling you something very key. That the purpose of learning is also to teach. The purpose of teaching is also to learn. The teacher is always a student, and a student is also a teacher. There's no end to it. That is, again, I said this before, that to really know the essence of a people, you just learn their language. You know their language a lot. You really know who they are. For us, we know, as Jewish people, education is key. There's a mitzvah of Talmud Torah upon everybody to study. Right? Not only for a father to his son, no. Oneself, as well to disseminate to others. Right? Limud, learn. What is Moshe doing in the entire book of Devarim, if not teaching? But he's also a student. The more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. The less you learn, the more you think you know everything. It reminds me of a beautiful quote that Isaac Newton wrote towards the end of his life, that he said, "I do not know what I may be looked upon or be seen by others, but as for myself, I view myself as a little boy on the seashore playing with pebbles. I pick up one, I look at it, and then I put it down. Then I pick another one, I put it down. Basically, and he says, and in front of me is still the vast ocean that I didn't even touch yet." Again, that's humility.
Yeah. I'll read the quote in full. But
I love that quote.
It's a phenomenal quote. "I do not know what I may appear to the world, but to myself I seem to have been only like a boy playing on the seashore and diverting myself in now and then finding a smoother pebble or a prettier shell than ordinary, whilst the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me."
Ocean of truth. That's it. Yeah. Of course, he was heavily influenced by the Bible. Yes, one time we're going to do an episode about Isaac Newton's Hebraic roots. We're going to do
That's the topic.
an episode on that.
That
topic. Is phenomenal.
Yeah, sure.
Most people have no idea, and I think if people will know more about it, they'd be pleasantly surprised, and view the scientists of that time in particular. We'll call it the biblical age of reason.
Yeah, because if in other writings, I remember when I was doing a project in college. It was in university, and I read through John Locke's two treatises of government, and you're just seeing Tanakh. I was referencing Sefer Shoftim throughout, criticizing divine right of kings through Tanakh. I couldn't believe how much he continued to reference it throughout, and I think it was also emblematic of the time and just of what the people's minds were overall, like the intellectuals. They viewed Tanakh in the Bible as a foundational book of their knowledge as well, and one to continuously rely upon, whether it's political theory or something else. Up
until the late 1700s, in order to be considered an intelligent person, you had to know the Humash in Hebrew. That was the Renaissance. That was Europe. To be intelligent, educated. More than this, the majority of universities in England and in this country in the 1700s, Hebrew was a required course in universities. Why? Because they said if you don't know Hebrew, you cannot know the Bible. Exactly, it's the language. It's the essence of the language. That's how you'll really know. Translations, as good as they are, distort what the original is, no matter what. Translations, by the way, are not translations. Translations more are about interpretations.
Yeah, we've seen that. We see that in some Humashim that we have in some of the libraries here. So.
Yeah. Okay. So, anything else about the mitzvot from last week that?
I think we covered it. It was about mitzvot, responsibility, meaning, right? Yeah. And the more responsibility a person has, the more meaning a person will have in their lives as well. This is from Jordan Peterson idea. Yes. 12 Rules for Life.
Yeah. So again, he has a great quote that says, "The more responsibilities you take upon yourself, the more meaning you're going to find in your life," and that's absolutely true. What does that really mean? It means the following: that the more responsibilities you have, it means that I'm doing more. I realize that I am more useful than I was. Therefore, if I'm more useful, where is it leading me? I will have more meaning because I am more useful. And it's not usefulness to myself. It's being useful to others that gives an individual more meaning. If it's for oneself, it's selfishness.
So knowledge, accumulation of knowledge, and then...
And what did we say about knowledge and education in Hebrew?
So using it to
You're using it to share, you're using it to expand, you're using it to help others.
So there has to be... It sounds like what you're saying is that there always has to be some practical steps that need to be taken. Not just keeping knowledge, not just having some abstract knowledge in your head per se, but you have to
sharing it.
You have to share it. You have to disseminate it.
You don't have to be a teacher. You have to be an educator. Just conversation with people, talking. On a Shabbat table, among friends or among colleagues. I read something very interesting this week. Let me share with you. Oh, what is it? People like to talk. Even people who are introverts, they'll talk if something that interests them. Mm-hmm. So we are wired to talk. Our brain is wired to learn language and to really articulate it and to express ourselves. Animals express themselves in their own way. We humans express ourselves both bodily, physically, as well as more on a higher level, through the expression and the use of language, right? And language, by the way, is ambiguous, because the best way to have really intense conversations with people is always a follow-up question by saying, what do you mean by that? What else could this mean? Now you opened up more channels of possibilities, which means more learning. More become aware. I don't like the word to discover. I like the word aware. Give you an example. Gravity always existed from the moment of creation. It always existed. So do I see that Isaac Newton discovered gravity? No, gravity was always over there. He just became aware. He became aware of gravity, and then he said, "Let me explain how this might work in theory," with a mathematical language called calculus that he invented. But it was always there. God's knowledge, his intelligence, is not only everywhere, it's constant. It's on us to use our mind to realize it. But it's always there. Atoms are always here. His will is always here.
Is it because the connotation discovers like koche ve'otzim yadi?
Yeah, I discovered. No, you didn't discover. You simply became aware of it.
It's semantics, but there's the connotation behind it. You're saying, sure, I get it. Yeah. Right.
So again, I sometimes watch these YouTube.
The shorts?
The shorts sometimes.
Yeah.
And you have one guy that goes around and he interviews billionaires, like multi-billionaires.
Yeah.
I forgot his name.
His
young guy.
School of Hard Rock.
Yeah.
School of Hard
Very
Knocks.
nice, very nice. And it's very nice to see that they actually talk to him.
Yeah.
And often, really very often, he asks them, what gives you the greatest pleasure in life? And they all say, helping others. That's meaning to them. Helping others. It could be with money, it could be advice, it could be consultation, it could be their time, helping others. And the interviewer, he says, what, it's not to buy another yacht? They say, that doesn't give me fulfillment. No, it's helping others. And this is, again, the Torah teaches this to us. Because when we spoke about that, how the mitzvot actually, come to play. Even when we do mitzvot that we say are between us and God, really it's to keep us in check that our relationship with God is also dependent how we treat others. So the value of others depends on what God said, the value of other people. Right. So I'm constantly reminded about God who gave value to everything and to everyone. And my actions are going to determine my faith. My words mean nothing. What I have in my, I believe. You believe. How do you demonstrate your belief? It's easy to believe. It requires being very passive. I believe. Right? And that's all. I believe. How do you practice that belief? Who is your God that you believe in? What Scripture says, that He tells you what to do, or a figment of your imagination, which is idolatry? That is our constant struggle. It's black and white. That's the constant struggle. That's the Adam and Eve story. That's the Adam and Eve story that all humans go through. All humans go through, unless they're mentally incapacitated. Right? We all go through it. Right? But people say, oh, why did God create us this way? Stop. Being human is X, Y, and Z. And being human is look at the advancements that we've done. Look at all the good we do. There's more good in the world than there's evil. Yes, it's true that many people suffer, but that's because of usually governments, politicians usually, as well as within that society, there's a lack of empathy and help and charity and philanthropy. Yeah. So what does that tell you? Something is rotten in this culture. Something is no good. How can they let little children go throughout the day in the middle of the street without giving them any food? Something is wrong with this culture. Right? Again, I was talking to my friend today actually, and I told him there's two ways how we humans can conduct ourselves. We can either conduct ourselves according to the laws of the jungle, or we can conduct ourselves according to the law of God. And we applied both, and we saw, as humanity, we applied both versions, and we saw the results. Now, when people say, "Oh, what are you talking about? Look what certain religions have done throughout the course of centuries," and they claim God, I go, that's not what God says to do. They made up their own faith and saying this is what God says. And do you know how come people bought it? Because 99% of the population were total ignorance for them to even know how to read what the Bible even says. So let's not even go there. Just because there's a people who are ignorant and they do what they're told, hey, don't tell me that is what God is telling them how to behave. Anywhere that there's evil, not justice, evil, God doesn't say to do this. Now there's a difference between just, kindness, yeah. There has to be a law. There has to be ramifications for the actions that we do, the consequences. But is there also kindness and compassion and forgiveness? Absolutely. Sometimes we can't. Most of the times we forgive. If parents didn't forgive their children, there would be no children.
You know better than me.
No, you're a good boy. That's because of your mom.
Ah.
Okay.
Ah.
So and it's funny because I don't know how we got into this chat, but I brought this book because every so often I do bring a lot of things that have to do with European Christian history and Christianity and all that. I don't want to say that Christianity is evil. No. As a faith, if it's properly practiced according to the essence of what their founders said, it wouldn't be the ugly history of what Europe did to the world. Not only to us, to the world. It wouldn't be. It's the church that committed such foul things to humanity. They did not follow what their founders said. They didn't. It was about power and subjugation and wealth. The Vatican is one of the most wealthiest corporations in the world.
Oh, I've been there. It's something. Yeah.
You just saw what you saw.
Yeah.
There's a bank. They have a bank. I mean, forget the treasures, investments, multi-billion-dollar it's a corporation. And this has gone on for centuries. Fine. They repented. Okay. So I read this book called Europe and the Jews. Okay? It was written by a man called Malcom. He was a Scottish man that eventually became a priest. He wrote this book after the Holocaust. He was a very honest individual. And he clearly knew history extremely well. He knew Christian writings very, very well because he quotes them all over the place. There's over 500 footnotes in this book. It's not a big book, to be honest with you. And it's called Europe and the Jews: The Pressure of Christendom on the People of Israel for 1900 Years. He goes all the way back, up until his own time, from the late 1950s.
Yeah.
Okay? It's really a fascinating book. What does he demonstrate here? He demonstrates how the masses were so brainwashed in believing whatever the church and the churches and their priests would tell them about the Jews, which ultimately led to Nazi Germany, the Holocaust. I said this, I say this often, and I also told this today to a friend I was talking to. I said, the accumulation of what Christian Europe, Catholic Europe, wanted to do with the Jews was Nazi Germany. That was their dream, to rid the world of the Jews. To rid the world of the Jews. That was their dream.
Okay, so now
and one second. And it happened to be that they didn't succeed doing this for 1800 years because the Industrial Revolution began in the late 1700s. And it was only because of the Industrial Revolution that Hitler was able to do what he did on such a mass scale.
And fast.
Very fast. Okay? With the support of the majority of the Germans, as well as the support of the majority of the countries that he took over. They say, take them, take the Jews, take them. Right? France paid him to take Jews. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is something very ugly. Yeah, this only happened 80, 90 years ago. That's it. It's not. It's around the corner. It's people who are in their 80s and 90s that you actually know them. That happened to them when they were kids. What? Mm-hmm. It's not 1,000 years ago. It's not biblical people. This is amazing. Okay. So, I do this. I do a test. And again, the point is not to bash. And here, this book, by the way, his point is not to bash Christianity. It's to expose what it did in order for Christians and Catholics to repent and to acknowledge the evils that were committed by their ancestors and their continent, and to say, we are not going to do this again to anybody. That's the point of this book. Okay? He also spent time in Israel, and he was part of, he had, in 1947, he happened to be there, and when England said no more British people in Israel before 1948, because of the whole balagan that they were terrorizing, the underground armies were terrorizing the British soldiers and all, they said, all citizens leave Israel. Do you know what he did? He joined the underground army in Rehovot, and he had an undercover name. You know, his name was Rabbi Chai. Like his last name is Hay, they call him Rabbi Chai. He's our rabbi, right?
No way.
Hilarious. No, it's very fascinating, interesting. He went in 1949 again with a manuscript of the book. He showed it to somebody, how to collaborate and more until he published. It's very interesting.
Sure.
And what was I about to say? Oh, yes. What I'm about to say, again, it's not to bash. It's simply to understand and to see how is it that people think today and how people thought before.
Mm-hmm.
So I challenge my students, and I put a picture on the screen. I put a picture of a cross, and then I put a picture of the swastika.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them, which symbol represents more evil? They all say the swastika. And I tell them, you're wrong. What do you mean? I go, do you know the history of the other symbol? That symbol, the cross, is the parent of the swastika, of what they did. Without the cross, there would not be a Nazi Germany. That hatred, the Jews? No. That is one of the points that he demonstrates in this book.
Sure.
They're like, what? And he say, what? You didn't learn in European history or in Jewish history all the things. Yeah, but it was that, it was small, it was here, it was there, it was not. I go, well, what do you think they wanted to do ultimately? Okay, another example. Nazi doctrine, of course, was they wanted to purify Germany and eventually Europe from Jewish blood. Why? Because it's impure.
Right.
Right? It's not European blood. Get rid of it.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same. What did the
Pura sangresa.
Spanish expulsion Inquisition want to do? Pura de sangre. You know, we
Pura
want
de
to purify
sangre,
the blood
yeah.
of Spain from the non-Catholics or the fake Catholics.
Right.
Because in the mind of the primitive native European, it's all about blood and land. And that's primitive. Again,
It's very natural.
primitive.
It's very natural.
And it's tribalism.
Yeah.
It's tribalism.
Wow.
America's not like that.
No.
Mm-mm. It's because they took their values of who you are, not based on blood, based on your ideology, based on your connection with the fundamentals and living by it, which is the Torah. We are the first people ever in history to allow non-foreigners, again, non-foreigners, non-citizens, not bloodlines of our people to become citizens of our people. We're the first people in history to do this. Acceptance. Why? Because it's not strictly based on bloodline. That's secondary. It's based on a set of values.
Mm.
That's the key. And America is the same.
ultimately just take time for it to evolve and unfold to that way. But within their founding doctrines and documents, that was their goal and their vision. Right, that's true.
Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about the book of Devarim. So just a little introduction.
After that introduction.
There's so much to talk about.
I know. We could have gotten
Just
more
inroads and more inroads.
We could have gotten more. Like I actually had a question before you get into Sefer
go ahead.
Devarim. When you were talking about how the church wanted to exterminate the Jews, for lack of a better term, get rid of them, destroy them, really.
Because we're stubborn.
That jealous, that hatred, right? It took me back to what you brought up in the beginning, right, with the word religion. Like, it was something that they tried to manifest themselves and continuously, and it didn't stop, right? So it just made me think of that, and in a way, also talking, again, connecting Mitzvot to it as well, right? Where in Christianity, it's really more about the spirit of the law, right?
Not the practice.
Not the practice of the law, or not the letter, right? It's more about, so the meaning, to find meaning in a system like that, it's so lofty and so challenging that you need to go to someone to tell you what that meaning is if you really think about it. Yeah. But God on the flip, as the Torah, is telling you, here are the 613 Misvot to you, Am Yisrael. I'm instructing you on what it is. You don't need someone to tell you what your meaning will be, because now you have a system of what to follow. And this is something that you agreed to as well. And through that, you're now able to generate meaning within your own lives and figure it out for yourself.
Both on a personal and a national scale.
Exactly.
It's both.
And I think that's ultimately going to connect with Sefer Devarim, with what Moshe is really trying to portray to Am Yisrael before they enter Eretz Yisrael. So, yeah.
So the fifth book of the Humash, Devarim, is extremely different than the other books. It's a recap. A lot of it is a recap of many experiences. It even goes back to pre-Exodus experience, because it mentions the forefathers often, always. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, what he did to them, the promise. It goes over and over and over again. It introduces us to about there's 175 mitzvot referenced in the book of Devarim also, that are not referenced in the other books. Okay? It doesn't mean that they were given at the end. It just basically means it's written at the end. Okay? Because we said that it was transmitted to the Jewish people at Sinai and through the course of the journey. Okay? Now, the style of the book, if we compare it to the other books, it's completely different. There are resemblances here and there, certain paragraphs that are like the other ones, but as a bulk, it's very different. This is Moshe's Oration. He is the master orator. He is the master of language. And reading it in English, in Spanish, and German, whatever you want, absolutely does zero justice to how it's written in the Hebrew. If you read it in the Hebrew, it is absolutely one of the most eloquent pieces of written word you will ever read. Ever. Sometimes when I read parts of it in the synagogue, I'm very moved by it to tears. I sometimes have to stop because the words are so powerful. They evoke so much emotion, so much care, so much concern that Moshe has for the Jewish people, which is unbelievable. He wants them to succeed so badly. He knows that they're going to have failures and challenges. And he gives them the formula, the solution, how to deal with them, how to even avoid them. He gives them precautions. He's telling them what's going to happen when you're going to go in. The influences that are they're all going to be there. How are you going to manage them not affecting you, not selling out your children, your grandchildren, your property? your values, your God who took you out of Egypt, who took care of you for 40 years, like a father carrying his son in his arms with care and kindness. So much of this. So much of it. And again, reading it really in the Hebrew is mind-blowing. It really is. And some people say, no, he didn't write it because it's different than the other ones. We have to understand something very important. The other ones are not orations. No, they're more dictated. Okay? The other ones are more about God's expression. Here, it's more about Moshe's expression. Of course, it's with the consent of God, but it's Moshe who is evoking his emotions and feelings in the text.
Why? Why is there one book dedicated to this? What did you think? Because up until this point in time, the Torah is about narrative law. So this book, it sticks out.
Yeah.
Why even have it a part of the corpus?
We have the laws, we have the narratives. What does it all mean? What is the purpose of all of it? And Sefer Devarim puts the plan ahead of how to be able to succeed in the land of Israel in the course of history and time. And one time one of my students asked me, if you can just give me one chapter, one portion that I'll read in the Torah and give me the whole synopsis, what would it be? I told him Parashat Devarim, the second parasha of the book of Devarim. You want the whole synopsis of Judaism? You read that parasha. Take away a couple of paragraphs even. That happen to be something that Moshe says to establish cities of refuge. Take that away. Right. If you want to, just give me that, the synopsis of a diagram of what this whole thing is really about, that parasha. It has so many fundamentals of Judaism in there. It speaks about our past. It speaks about their present. It speaks about the future. It speaks about responsibilities. It speaks about our relationship with God. It speaks about how does God view us? Who are we to Him? Not only who is He to us, who are we to Him? Banim atem l'Adonai Elohechem. You are children of God. So it really has very, very powerful. One of another reasons why even the language is different. The formation of the pesukim, the phraseologies are different than the rest. This book is an accumulation of 40 years of a journey of the greatest educational system a generation ever received by someone. Moshe. Moshe is the teacher. He is the teacher. Rabbeinu, he's our man, he's our teacher. And after 40 years of him teaching, not only the Torah, other things that has to be going on. Perspectives, different wisdoms, different histories, different narratives, different stories, whatever it is, dialogue, this conversation is going on for 40 years. The language evolved even. The use of language evolved, as well as the audience evolved. He's not talking to the people who left Egypt anymore. No, this is a completely different species in a sense. So he's talking to them on a completely different level, on a very elevated level than how he spoke to their parents. Mm-hmm. So that's why, of course, the language has to be different. He can't speak to them the same way. No. All right, so just a couple of things I wanted just to mention that I thought were very interesting. So the Torah tells us in the beginning of the book that, for example, on Pasuk number 5, Pasuk He, that on the side of the Jordan, on the east side of the Jordan River, right, in the land of Moab, Moshe be'er this Torah. So the word be'er, right, on its own means a well, a water well. The word be'er also means to expand. Okay? To expand. So what is the correlation between the two? Is that if you want to be able to expand on meaning, you have to dig deep. Meaning, this is nothing superficial. This is not for dummies. It's not.
It's a familiar quote.
Yes. The Chacham used to tell us, the Torah is not for dummies. I mean, it doesn't mean that people who are ignorant can't keep the Torah. No, you can keep the Torah. You can keep the Torah and you can understand very shallow, very super, yeah. But it's layers upon layers upon layers of depth that are endless. Endless. The book that has been quoted and commented the most in human history is the Humash. Jews and non-Jews. And expanded and interpreted. We have way more, when you take all of Jewish literature, we have way more books that are commentaries on scripture than on law. The Talmud, for example, you take the whole corpus of the Talmud, 2/3 of it is non-legal. Because law is law. Once the ruling's done, it's black and white. Done. Oh, and we'll revisit how they got there. Oh, okay, great. But once it's done, it's done. But when it comes to the non-legal elements, human behavior, human success, way more human failures, aspirations,
values, systems,
emotions, people, characters, all that, oh boy, we can play around with that as much as possible in order to gain more meaning and understanding. What else does the narrative tell me? So it connects with me today and the now, that I can learn and how am I going to become a better person? Because the Torah is the law of Israel, but the word Torah also means guidance, instruction, teaching. So therefore, when I read those narratives, in addition to the law, but when I read the other narratives, I say, what is it teaching me? It doesn't speak to saints. There are no saints in the entire scripture. There's no perfection except God. We don't know what that is. But it tells us more about the failures of humans. And what happened to those who changed their ways, who repented, and what happened to those who didn't? As well as sometimes what happened to us as a nation, collectively, when we failed and we didn't do teshuvah. What happened? And sometimes when we did teshuvah, what happened? It's the same formula. That formula will never change because the Torah is always dealing with human species. It's dealing with human behavior. We can't shake that off. We can't shake it. If you would change the DNA of a human to something else, it's not human anymore. It's not. But as long as we have the same formula in the DNA as a human, therefore we're always going to be behaving in human patterns. The Torah addresses this. It doesn't deny it. It doesn't ask of you to an aspiration that's impossible. That is why the most influential book in human history, influential, is the Humash. It influenced people, it still influences people today who read it, honestly, with humility, not arrogance, using this as a tool to destroy others. No, sir, you missed it and you desecrated God's name. You desecrated His will when you do that. But when you use it for righteousness, for good, for kindness, for helping others, you becoming a better person, that's what the Torah teaches. That's what it's about. Okay? So the word be'er is something that in order to be able to really expand in the Humash, expand on God's word and will, you need to dig deep. You need to really think critically, analytically, ask questions. Don't be afraid not to find answers. Very often people are afraid to ask questions because they're afraid that they will not find answers. That is not how it should work. That is definitely not scientific, and that is definitely not the Jewish tradition.
1, 2, Jews, 3 questions, right? 3 answers. What's the quote?
Possible. Answers are, if it's not scientifically fact, then let me offer possible ways of understanding, possible answers. Not I have all the answers and everybody's wrong. No, there's no conversation anymore.
Right. No,
that is one of the reasons why, by the way, this is interesting. According to our tradition, when in the Talmudic academies, as well as in the Mishnah academies, when law was discussed and debated, the senior rabbis, the senior sages, never spoke first. They always allowed the junior sages, the students, to speak first. So this way they don't feel intimidated. Exactly. There has to be dialogue. The way I do instruction in my classes is even when a student would ask a question, I never give the answer right away. I always say, what do you think? Break down, what do you think? What are some possible ways of how you could understand it? I'm not sure, I don't know. Okay, what do you think? Someone has to say something. I don't, me? No. Start thinking. That is how students learn how to think, not what to think. What to think is not education, that's indoctrination. How to think is the greatest tools you can give students. But it's not what I say. No. And again, let's learn this. Let's learn this. Let's figure this out. Collective, together. Because no matter what, we have minds. Let's put them to work.
So in a way, what Moshe is doing now is that he's reflecting on his experiences over the past 40 years, and he's, to use the analogy of the well, right? He's drawing deep from the well in order to pick the water up and then share it with the people, right? But it's based on the experiences that he had. So he's gone through it.
It's not only him. It's him with them. It's collective.
It's him with,
because that's why. Look, again, how does he start it? Adonai Eloheinu diber elenu. He's using plural language, saying that our God spoke to us in Horev. Your time here is done. Start to travel. It's all in plural language. Later on, he says something, specifically about him and God addressing him, and he's disseminating, or him telling God, I need some help me out. That's different. But he's reflecting on the collective national experience because he is part of it.
He's part of it, but he's reflecting it from his point of view as the leader of the people and as their teacher.
Of course.
Right? So he's inviting them to, after he finishes the oration, to expand on that as well and to think about what he said and carry with them what he taught them, so that when they go into Eretz Israel, they have all this wealth of knowledge from their collective experience that he summarized in this book.
The collective experience that gave them an identity and a strong meaning. A strong identity and meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That's part of this whole thing. Because if you read the first 4 parashot in particular, from an angle of identity and meaning, forget about it.
It's all there.
It is all there.
Yeah.
It really is all there. There's no question there's no ambiguity at all when it comes to the identity of who they are and the meaning of who they are, which is spectacular. No doubt. No doubt. Really. Fascinating generation. Let me just add to this. Ankelos, by the way, on the word be'er, he says perish, right? That Moshe interpreted, which really means to expand. Lefaresh is to expand, is to generate meaning. Right? Perush is to generate meaning, interpretation to generate meaning. What else could this mean? Right? As well as Sa'adia Gaon says, He'erich, right? Which is, let's say, expanded. Same thing with Perush.
Opened up.
Opened up, right?
Yeah.
Unfolded.
Unfolded.
We got
yeah.
more stuff, right? We got more things about our experiences to add, to supplement.
Yeah.
Right? So that's, I think, a very nice point in the parasha. Another one that we mentioned this maybe a couple of weeks ago, that Moshe Rabbeinu tells them, he reiterates at one point that he says, God multiplied you so much and he blessed you in such a beautiful way. And at that point, I didn't know how I'm going to be able to carry you and to handle all the situations and the issues that are practical in any nation. So what did I ask you? He says, Havu lachem anashim. Right? Choose for you, bring forth for you people to represent you. Right? Va'asimem berashechem. And I will appoint them as your leaders. Basically, a representative government, representative body of people. But the key word here is lachem. Lachem is for you. He doesn't simply say, Havu anashim, bring people. No. Bring people, lachem, for you to represent you, people who you know. Right? Chachamim, wise, unvonim, discerning, vidu'im. Vidu'im are people who are known among the population. Right? This is again a system of electing public officials to represent the body. And this is the first time we have in human history a record of a democratic republic.
That's interesting.
This is again, we're dealing here in the 15th century BCE. It's earlier than Greece. It could be that maybe somehow later on Greece got this idea from us. Why? Greek people, the Greeks, before they created the Greek Empire, way before that, right? They were sea people because they were always living on main islands for them to be able to do commerce. So how did they get influx of goods and all that? Through seaports, ports, the Mediterranean, all that. Israel, Lebanon, Syria are all coastal. Right? So there's evidence today that there was migration for thousands of years within the Mediterranean Ocean, but in particular in the region of the coast of Israel and Lebanon, because that was the connection also to Mesopotamia.
The Silk Route. Right.
Mesopotamia also, in the Fertile Crescent. So there was
Fertile Crescent, right.
There was a lot of commerce action going on there all the time. So whenever there is trade of commerce, there's also trade of culture, no matter what. There's trade of language, there's trade of religions, of ideas, of opinions, of dress, of exotic things. So it could be maybe that the early Greeks, who happened to be part of that whole region, picked up this idea from us. Because we were known. I hate this idea that for some reason it says the identity of the Jew, from who we always were, it's as if we're some type of a ghetto medieval European Jew of who we always were. No sir. We were a main factor in that whole region in the Middle East for thousands of years. We were known. We were known by the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Hittites. We were known. And by the Greeks, the early Greeks, forget Rome. Okay, by the Persians, we were known. We were acknowledged. Okay, some histories were better with others, okay? So, one of the greatest scholars of the last century, who did a phenomenal job demonstrating this, about how the Hebrews were mixed in this whole thing in this region, and contributions and effects we had, was the famous Cyrus Gordon.
Sure.
He has a number of books demonstrating what I'm saying, which is phenomenal, and it's all based on ancient history. If people want to pick up his books, it's great reads, by the way. He was one of the most brilliant scholars, who was also an archaeologist, by the way, who was also a decipherer of code language in World War II.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he
That's
did this
cool.
for the Americans to break the German code, by the way.
Oh, that's cool.
No, one of these brilliant minds.
Yeah.
So we need to know that we were a culture, a people that was known, and we had a say. We had an impact. We had an impact on where we were and who we corresponded with. Were we impacted by others, both positive and negative? Yes, of course we were, just like every people, just like every organism.
I mean, the more
We were not, my point is that we were not insulated.
right. We weren't living in a vacuum. I feel like more and more that impression or that notion continues to be broken, because the more you think about it, the more you have to see. Even if you don't know that there are languages that the Torah borrows from other languages, even if you don't know the archaeological, just putting things in the context of the world. Even Jews in Europe who were living in the ghettos and the shtetls, they were also influenced by the area
Correct.
around them.
Absolutely.
We weren't living in a vacuum. It was just Jews by themselves. Like it's impossible. Things influence things. Environment influences people. I mean, growing up, I remember hearing this from you all the time. No matter what, your environment will influence you. No matter what. And I remember this growing up and even after. You continue to say it. There's always seeping in, whether you're conscious of it or not. It's there. Sometimes you think it's a absurd idea to think that Jews didn't have interaction with other. I mean, it says in the Tanakh, it says in Humash, it says in the Tanakh that they're interacting with other nations and peoples. How could it be that they weren't?
But it's not that we interacted and we had nothing to contribute. No, we had a lot to contribute. A lot. We were a people. We were a nation. We were a power. We were known.
Yeah.
We were known.
Yeah.
So, understanding that the greatest contributions that the people of Israel ever gave to the world were the greatest ideas in humanity.
Yeah.
Of how to have a better humane society, the value of humanity, the rights of all humans by being created by one creator, one God, the worship of this one God, the God of morals and ethics, and I can go on and on. Those are the things. A representative government, branches of government that check on each other. We invented this. A day of rest for all you, for everything and every. There's so many things. Anti-slavery. We are the ones who gave these ideas to humanity. It took a long time for human societies to slowly take and adopt some of these concepts and ideas, and some are still stagnating. So we need to share this and say, we're part of this. It didn't come out of nowhere. Who came up with these crazy, silly ideas? No one thought of this, and no one ever thought of these things.
It's antithetical.
Totally. It's unnatural.
It's unnatural. True.
It's not the law of the jungle, that's for sure. So we need to come to our senses and say, yes, we were also major contributors, and we influenced each other, both positive things. Sometimes there were negative things. Sometimes we also contributed negative, unfortunately. Yes, because we are a people. We're a nation. We're humans. We make mistakes. We do. We did our best to learn from our mistakes. And we still need to learn from our mistakes, even now.
That never ends.
Yeah, that never ends.
Yeah.
Another point I want to bring is that towards the end of the parasha, Moshe reiterates that when they passed certain lands, God tells Moshe, don't provoke them with war. Who first? Seir. Seir had to do with the
Edom, right?
Edom, yes,
Right.
with the descendants of Esav. God says, I gave this portion of land to them. It's not yours. Then he says, also when we went to Moab, initially God says, don't provoke them with war. I gave the land to the descendants of Lot. The same thing with Ammon, descendants of Lot. These belong to them as an inheritance as God promised their ancestors. Just like the land of Israel belongs to you as God promised to your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, by condition that you follow the covenant, right? They have theirs. Teaching a principle. Nothing belongs to us. Even nothing belongs to the non-Jews, their land. God gives you the permission to dwell in that land. And God also keeps his promise.
Okay, so, This is interesting because you get the arguments, right? Like the Zionist arguments, right? Israel is the land given to the Jews by God.
That's the
It's
only
their
claim that
land, it's the only, it's right. People try to make all these arguments
of
and then people say, "Who's God? Like, what do you mean God? What do you mean God gave the land to the people? What does that even mean? Right? It's not because it sounds absurd on its face. What do you mean? Who's God? And what about giving the land to other people? What? They're the only ones that get a land. No one else gets a land, right?
What do you mean Simon Bolivar gave the land to all the people living in South America? He liberated them. So what right did he have to give them Venezuela and Colombia and Bolivia and he's called El Libertador. He's the liberator from the Spaniards. Well, guess what? Someone, instead of Simon Bolivar, can come tomorrow, take over countries and governments and say, that's my land, that's our land. And I can boot you out if I want.
Yeah.
God recognizes that this is part of human nature and governments.
Yeah.
That in general, lands, the people who are on a land usually is because of conquest, because of war and battle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is it. The conqueror took it over. Take it or leave it. This is it.
Yeah.
This is how it's been for thousands of years. Okay? But God says, even though that's the case, certain nations, certain people, you cannot go and conquer them. If they happen to start a war with you, defend yourself, and that's okay. You can take their land because they provoked you. You can do this. Okay? The same thing here. Later on in the same paragraph, he says, when you confronted Sihon, right, the chief of Ha'emori, the Amorite, and Og, who was also the chief of the land of Bashan, also on the east side of the Jordan, somewhere. It's territory. Again, when we say the word Melech in these contexts, it's not a huge kingdom empire. No, it's usually he's the head, the head of the clan in a particular territory. Okay, powerful. God tells them, Moshe says, remember that we asked them, can we just go through this area? We'll even pay for food and water. We don't want to start anything. We're just trying to go across the street to the land of Canaan. That's all. Mm-hmm. No! And they came out to do war with you. Yeah. God didn't say back off. God says, go ahead. Take him out. Yeah. So it's not that God is naive and innocent. No. There are times there you try to deal diplomatically, try to do things through peace. Don't provoke a war just for the sake of provoking a war. You have your territory. You have. If you need to defend yourself, go defend yourselves. And if you happen to have a battle with another people that you took their territory, that's yours now. They lost it by default because they engaged with war with you for no reason. That is how you win. In the Middle East, again, different than the Western mind, today especially, okay? In the Middle East, especially among Arabs, Muslim Arabs, because among them, it's to their core, it's tribalism and territorial. To their core, Islam is based on that too. The only way they will concede defeat and say we're defeated is if you take away their land. Not how much you bombed them, not how many people were killed, not if you even took out their military or government. The only way they will say we lost is if you take away their land. They can't accept the situation of today. They can't accept the Jewish state because in their mind, their land was taken away from them, and that would mean defeat. And Islam cannot be defeated because Islam is based on conquest. And those Jews, they're infidels. This is Muslim land. Hence, the ideology is to annihilate the Jewish state with its people. There's no dialogue with people who think this way. The only way they can be defeated is you take over their territory. It's the only way. That's when they'll concede.
So going back here with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He grants Am Yisrael the piece of land, Eretz Canaan, right? That was promised to them from Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And like that ultimately is their goal. They're trying to reach it there. But along the way in the journey, they're interacting with other nations. Other nations are more cordial than others, clearly. Some nations decide to fight with them. And ultimately, they have every right to self-defense in order to say, we're not just going to be pushed over and destroyed just because you start attacking us. You have no right to, and we didn't even provoke you in any way. So contrast that with HaKadosh Baruch Hu also telling Am Yisrael, other nations, they have their portion too. Don't mess with them. Let them be. Let them have their thing as not yours to take. In a way, and I was gonna say that it's not Am Yisrael. It's not like a conquering culture.
No, we're not.
We're not. Like we have the land that we're given to by God, right, through Abraham's Yaakov, promised, etc. But beyond that, we're not meant to go out and just take over other people's land. We have our borders, and that's the extent of it. If other people, I mean, during the time of David HaMelech, he expanded the borders, but that was due to wars that were provoked by other nations.
1 second.
Right?
That was also due to the fact that the borders that the Torah tells us are beyond the borders that David had. It tells us Ad Nehar Perat, until the Euphrates. Har Lebanon, the mountain of Lebanon, is all the way north. If we look at the real map of what the Torah says of the borders of Israel, it's 4 times.
It's much larger.
Yeah, it's much, much larger. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the early maps of what was suggested by the League of Nations,
yeah,
in the early 1920s, the late 1910s, if you look at that map of what they were saying this portion of land belongs to Israel, it's 3 times what it is now. It was half of Jordan.
Right.
It was half of Jordan. It was a quarter of Lebanon. It was a quarter of Syria. It was much big. It was the whole Sinai Peninsula. It was much, much, much larger than what it is today. Mm-hmm. Because they recognized that they were looking at it from the borders of how the Bible describes the borders of Israel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But another point, what doesn't belong to you does not belong to you. That's it. This is it. This is the moral code of God. What belongs to others belongs to them. What belongs to you belongs to you. And it's not only territory, it's also property. You know, it's also businesses. It's also things that, don't steal, don't rob. No.
Right. I mean, and also what's recurring throughout the parasha is also the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu continuously encourages them that, right, this is your land. Go and inherit it. Go and settle it, right? Go and conquer the other nations that are within, because this is what was promised to you by your forefathers.
Yeah.
But he constantly revisits this point. Why? Why can't he just say it once and just move on? Why does he have to continue to say it?
Because of the tribulations that happened in the journey, in the 40-year journey. How many times did the Jewish people want to go back to Egypt and give up? Numerous.
True.
And it's only that, so far, only what Scripture tells us. No doubt. There were many times
There
more.
are others, probably.
Okay?
Sure.
Maybe not on a huge scale, but maybe portion scale. And I remember, if I recall, there's a few midrashim, legend
Yeah.
of people who did this went back and they were destroyed. I mean,
Right.
the point is that you really needed to really lift up the spirits and confidence of the Jewish nation, as really to strengthen them in order to say we can achieve this, because it was never done before in the history of who they were. We left that territory for a few centuries. We left Canaan with Jacob and his tribe. We left. It's as if we abandoned it. It's as if we gave it up. Not only that, we were slaves. What, you think nobody knew about it? Everyone in the territory knew about it. Everyone. Now, you had your little journey with your God, whoever that is, according to them. We also have our God. We have our Baal. You want to come here again? You're not the landlords of this place. But you don't think that was going on in the minds of the Jewish people? Keep in mind that you have 7 main tribes. Again, not nations. When we think nation, we think
Right.
it was tribal. It was clans. It was 7 different clans.
Yeah.
Right? That we need to deal with. That they're going to say, "What's your claim over here? We've been here. You left." But you didn't think that was going on. So the way we think today when it comes to these very basic things is the same way how people thought back then. They're human. Who wants to be thrown out of their home? Nobody.
Fair.
Who wants to be thrown out of their territory? Nobody. Especially if that's their native land. Nobody.
Yeah.
And way more than in modern times, because today we can go here, we can live over here, we can live over there. Blah, blah. No. It was common understanding in Semitic countries, also among others in the Mediterranean and etc., that if you were born in a place, that you are part and parcel of that place. You are attached to it, and if you detach from it, you gave up. It's like you gave it up, that someone else can now take it. You have to understand this. That's the psyche of the people. So of course Moshe is going to have to repeat this constantly. Yeah, God is willing, but okay, great. Now we're facing the actual people.
Yeah. That's a message. No, that's a fascinating parasha. Listen, there's so much to unpack there. And again, it's very real what Moshe does and what Moshe says to them. Very personal, because
very personal, yeah.
like you see throughout, like you said, and when you're reading the Hebrew, you see and you feel that consideration and that care that he has for them.
Concern.
Concern.
A
That's
lot
a,
of concern.
that's the right word.
He's
That's
very
the right
concerned,
word.
yeah.
He has tremendous concern. I mean, and you see in the later Parashiyot when he's warning them about what's going to happen if you don't follow in the ways of God, right? Because it's not all hunky-dory, and he knows the nature of the people too, whether we like it or not. So I think that that really wraps it up.
Yeah. So I think it'll be, I think it's crucial to be versed as much as possible in the Torah.
Yeah.
As much as possible, and see the beauty, and see the beautiful ideas, the beautiful gifts that it offers humanity, as to how we can have better and more useful and meaningful lives. That's really
the goal.
That's really the objective, the goal. And the Torah really is the mechanism that assists us and helps us on a daily basis to do this. It doesn't mean it's the only thing. No, by all means, there's knowledge and wisdom and intelligence everywhere. It doesn't matter where it comes from. It doesn't matter. We shouldn't discriminate. If something is true, it's true. If something is beautiful and very helpful for humanity, it doesn't matter where it's from. It really doesn't really matter. Because again, if we take seriously what the Torah says, that God is the Father of all humanity, and all humanity has capabilities, then by all means, we should take all the positive contributions of anybody in order to make our lives more beautiful, more wonderful.
So I'm going to piggyback off of that and bring up a question that someone was asking on the previous episode. And it's something that we've discussed also. And you did allude to it through this episode, which was as follows. You mentioned last week that you're always pushing and you always give answers that satisfy your students, the younger generation. You're saying things to them, you're provoking them, you're getting them thinking, right? You're saying a lot of things to them, but are there specific lines, are there specific answers that you have that makes them realize, wow, the Torah really is beautiful. Wow, there's so much value in Yahadut and Judaism. Or is it more, I think what you said before earlier in the conversation was it's about the dialogue, right? It's not necessarily about one specific thing that you say, but it's more about opening up the dialogue, getting them to really think and rethink and realize certain things on their own and giving them the opportunity to do so, right?
It's a combination of both. If I'm teaching a particular subject, I'm going to give them as much as I can context and background of the bigger picture. And the same way that what we do now, like this, that goes in my classes. It really does. And I tell them, certain things I'm not going to assess you on. I'm not expecting it. I just say these things. I just expand. I share these things for you to really have a more broader mind, a broader way of thinking, and not narrowness, and not provincialism that is like this narrow. It's not going to lead you anywhere. It's going to make you dumb, if anything, especially nowadays. Broad. And what does this connect to? How is this connected to your daily life? So, very often, they share with me that so many things they learned about morals, ethics, behavior, be it, if I can demonstrate to them through halakha, also the purpose of the halakha. Where is this trying to lead us to? Why are we doing this particular ritual, for example? What's the bigger picture behind it? And the message is, they tell me that the reason why they did that is because now they finally understand a very good reason to do it. It evokes a certain feeling and emotion through intellect that they see that has real value. Not everything. So what? I don't care. You know? And I tell them the same thing. There's many mitzvot. And I tell them, don't you ever say you're not observant. You are. If you're Jewish, you are observant. You're observing something. Feel good about that. And ask yourself, what can I do more to enhance and strengthen my Jewish identity? Can I do something additional that I'm already doing?
Mm-hmm.
Or how about, can I enhance what I'm doing in this particular thing? Can I do even better of that one thing that I do? I go to them, it doesn't matter what it is. No one is taking accounting. No one's doing that. No one's bookkeeping. The point is, what opportunities do you have for you to solidify your Jewish identity? That's it. This is it. And if it's not, it can't be outside the realm of Torah and Mitzvot. Torah and Mitzvot, Jewish identity is defined by Torah and Mitzvot. It has to be correlated to that. And halakha, of course. Right? Again, you don't have to know Shulchan Aruch the whole thing. I tell them, you don't have to do that. I'll go here. You say the Shema. Okay, so we do a unit of Shema. What, do you think I do the whole 3 chapters of the Shema? No. I took key principal elements of law, right? That is what we learn. But prior to that, we're learning the paragraphs. And the bigger picture of everything, what's going really on. And the breakdown of the mitzvot in each paragraph. Why do you think we have these mitzvot? Why are they so fundamental? Why is it important to say the Shema twice a day? Isn't it true that we need reminders on a daily basis? And they say, yeah. I go, you guys are teenagers. How many times you need to be reminded to do X, Y, and Z? Many. I go, what? I go, the Torah is a reminder. The mitzvot are reminders about our connection with God and the covenant and how to behave. What do you think all this is really all about?
Right. So in other words, what you do is you open up the conversation and show them the meaning and
the
practicality of it. Right.
Practicality. Nothing spiritual, nothing spiritism, none of that. That has nothing at all to do in my classrooms. None. I say, your soul is your soul. You need to discover what that means. I can't tell you your soul. I can give you a general idea of what it is according to our philosophy, but what is it really? It's not something tangible. But isn't it interesting? And I go to them like this. I go, raise your hand if this ever happened to you. Did you ever pray, be it in synagogue or be it in the prayer group in school or be it at home, about something that was really on your mind it could have been something happy, something that's very concerning, and you really prayed with your mind, like with your emotion, and you just started to cry? Almost all of them raised their hand. I tell them, why? I go, isn't that weird? I go, why? Why did that happen? They say, oh, because it was emotional. I felt this way. I thought it. I go, yeah, but why? Why did it evoke you to cry? I go, I could think of many sad things. It doesn't make me cry. But why did that do that to you? He said, I don't know. I go, you touched your soul. That's what you did. You tapped into your soul, into your true essence, and something moved you that usually doesn't. That's the abstractness of who you are. Now, when we do things mechanical, it's very difficult. It's true. Because it becomes mundane, unfortunately. That's a pattern of what we're going to do. But we should do our best to take certain moments and certain actions and certain time to before we jump into it, say, let me take a moment to really concentrate. Let me focus. Let me see if I can achieve something that the Torah wants me to, the mitzvah is trying to lead me to. Let me see if I can do that. Let me see if I can bring out the practicality, and not just like, and not simply the roteness of it. But it takes reflection. It takes
right. So you get your students to really reflect.
Oh, big time.
You get them to really rethink and reconfigure what
I tell them off
sort
the
of
bat,
ideas, yeah.
the first day, off the bat, be it my Humash class, which is phenomenal, I love it, or my halakha class, I tell them off the bat, this is not a high school course. This is university, if not more. I'm going to challenge you. You're not going to be used to it. It's demanding. But at the end of the day, it'll be so beneficial to you that you'll thank me. And they all do. Even the ones who really struggle hard, they all do. Across the board. They send me emails, they tell me, they love it because I made them understand why they're Jewish, and not because I was born. Now you understand why you're. Now you see the benefit of what it really is. They start to see the sophistication of Jewish law, the sophistication of Scripture. That it's not superficial at all.
Yeah.
And it's hard for them initially for the first 2 months. I tell you, because they're not used to thinking this way in any of their classes.
Sure.
Because at the same time, I'm teaching them how to think.
Right.
And that's they're teenagers. They're 15, 16. They're not, their brains are still developing. Their frontal lobe, their reason is still developing.
Yeah.
So for some of them, the beginning is definitely challenging.
Yeah.
But they change. They change. Their scope changes. Their appreciation of Judaism changes. A number of the kids, since I've been in the school for like 8 years, a few kids on their own started to keep Shabbat on their own. Some of these kids transformed that their whole family now keeps Shabbat.
Wow.
Their whole family.
Wow.
They're married brothers. A number of them now only say, they told their parents, don't bring anything that's not kosher in the home. Everything has to be kosher. There's no reason why we have non-kosher stuff in the house. And when they go out, they give their parents a hard time. I don't want to go eat there anymore. I want to eat in the kosher restaurant. Look how many we have. Why are we going there?
Yeah.
Or a number on their own who say, I'm only eating kosher restaurants. I tell my friends, can't eat there. On their own. Or some say, Rabbi, I put tefillin throughout all summer vacation. I go, why? I always ask them why, by the way. I go, I'm proud of it. I go, but tell me why, really, tell me really why. Oh, because in the class we learned this and this and this and that. I go, but what was it essentially that, because X, Y, and Z really gave me more meaning of what it's about. I go, good. I go, but continue to find more meaning, because as you grow, you're going to want more meaning. It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
It's not that difficult. Honestly, it's not difficult. It's just a matter of how are we presenting and teaching Judaism to young minds. Is it on an intellectual scale? Sophisticated? Like, this is intelligent. This ain't, stupid, cute stories. No. And it's not because God said so. I go to them, don't you ever say that in my class. God is not a tyrant. Why does God suggest this? I even say the word suggest. I don't even say, suggest this. Again, it lowers this tension of God, the religion. It's out. It's not part of the conversation at all. And when someone says, religion, well, that's a bad word in my class. Don't use that word religion in my class. Religious. Again, it's about training them to see that Judaism, is unique to Am Yisrael, to us. This is to us. And there's a lot of work to do.
Always. It never ends. Yeah. On that note.
Right. I think we'll try to do another short podcast, maybe this week or early next week, about the week of Tisha B'Av and a little bit of Tisha B'Av, of that history, what's going on. It was a horrible history, not only between the Romans and the Jews, but among the Jews, there was such violence going on. Very bad. So I'm going to see if I'm going to try to bring sources from Josephus, as well as the Roman historian Tacitus, and others during that time who collected what was going on between the Jews internally, that they were hating and violent upon each other. The Talmud tells us that it's because of Sinat Chinam, that the Jews hated each other for no reason. Yeah, but they don't expand. What did they do to each other? The cute story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. He didn't invite me to the wedding. No. There was horrible stuff going on. They say, how can Jewish people behave this way towards each other? All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do my best to bring some more sources and information about that era, so we can understand, what's the purpose of the day itself? What's the real purpose? What are we crying about? A temple? We have no idea what that means. But what's the bigger picture, just besides the destruction of a building?
Yeah.
No, there's something much more grave than that.
Okay.
To be aware of. All right.
Until next time then.
Amen.
Amen.